army of my countrymen, here in defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men. And free men you are. What will you do without freedom? Will you fight? Fight against that? No! We will run! And we will live. Die. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
You ready? Let's go. Yeah. For those of you that want to know what we're all about, it's like this, yo.
And welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.TV. Thank you for joining me this lovely evening. It is February the 12th, 2014. Oh, Bitcoin. Yeah. Let's just put it this way. Bitcoin, a little loophole in Bitcoin, has basically put a stop to withdrawals in a lot of, Bitcoin exchanges. Here's one from libertybeat.com. By Derek Bros. A second Bitcoin exchange firm has suspended customer withdrawals of the cryptocurrency from their wallets. Bitstamp, based in Slovenia, stated that they had been the victim of a denial of service attack, and whoever is doing this is not stealing coins, but is succeeding in preventing some transactions from confirming. This announcement comes on the heels of a similar announcement from Mt. Gox Bitcoin Exchange. And the source of that is LA Times Business. Yeah. If you don't understand what this loophole is, it basically makes it where they can go in and during the exchange, they can change the hash tags in the exchange address and cause it to fail. And from what I've been reading, there's no actually confirming of any stealing of any of the transactions, but the ability to force it to fail when trying to exchange Bitcoins. Any of the transactions that get attacked, they will not go through. And a lot of people wonder if this is some type of governmental attack. Not saying our government, but some government. China, US, it could be a lot of different governments trying to stop Bitcoin. And really what they are doing is succeeding in doing that, because they're making it where you can't even get your money out of it because you can't exchange it. It fails. And it's not happening to every single one, but it's definitely happening to enough of them that a lot of the exchanges are stopping and halting all transactions. So and that is growing because every time one stops, they just move on to another one that's still active. So they'll force that one to stop too. No news yet on any fix coming out for that. So we'll have to stay tuned. Let me see what Bitcoin is currently supposed to be trading at, if you're able to even trade. And if you have your wallet in one of those, you're kind of screwed. And right now, 536. So it's definitely down. Low was 511.77. And as long as they're successful at stopping transactions and causing these exchanges just to halt all transactions, and until a fix comes out, it's going to be very, very hard for Bitcoin to survive this, I think. Personal opinion. So if you are able to get your Bitcoins, I might recommend doing that. And I don't want to seem like someone that's pushing fear upon anybody, but if you're able to get it out, I'd get it out. Just because if they're shutting down these exchanges, that means the people that are hacking, the people that are hacking are going to move on to another exchange that's still operating. So, we'll see where this goes. Keep up on the news on that. Okay, Rand Paul sues Obama over NSA. Let's see if we can actually get this clip to play. And give me a second here. That way I can make sure. Because I can always hear it through my soundboard, but I need to open up a secondary device here to make sure it's playing through. Because we were having issues last time, so here we go.
Action lawsuit filed today. And we promise you we talk about this. Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky leading a class action lawsuit filed today against President Barack Obama over NSA data collection. Now here he is, Rand Paul, announcing the suit in Washington.
There's a huge and growing swell of protest in this country of people who are outraged that their records would be taken without suspicion, without a judge's warrant, and without individualization. This, we believe, will be a historic lawsuit. We think it may well be the largest class action lawsuit ever filed on behalf of the Bill of Rights.
So it's kind of a two-pronged story. You got the legal and you've got the constitutional, those two angles. But you also have the Rand Paul story. The rising Republican star's been commanding headlines for 2 weeks now. He's, of course, the son of Ron Paul, the former member of Congress and perennial presidential candidate. And now Rand Paul's thinking of launching a run at the White House himself. He's a Republican who leans libertarian. And he has an op-ed explaining his lawsuit today at CNN.com. So make sure.
Okay, well, he might not be your cup of tea, but what I like to see is that all sides of the spectrum, when it comes to the political spectrum, people that lean left, people that lean right, people in the middle, Libertarian, Green Party, it doesn't matter who. Everybody is upset over NSA. And I seen some comments over the whole protesting NSA yesterday. Comments, oh, this group might be linked to Occupy movement. This group might be linked to Tea Party. Yeah, there was Tea Party groups, Occupy groups. There were, every spectrum out there, groups saying, yeah, actually, we're going to support this too. We all agree on this thing. And no matter what, when you're fighting things that, like NSA or, a lot of these other, causes out there, there's going to be very, very, very good possibility you're going to run into people that on most things you completely disagree with. But on that one thing that, let's say the NSA mass surveillance, you both agree. Should you be fighting each other because you disagree on everything else? Or should you be more focused on, hey, we both agree that we don't like the NSA, let's go ahead with this. And, a lot of times I see so many, activists out there that, well, he was an activist or she was an activist and she did activism with this person and this person's linked with this group and that group's linked with this group and, well, same thing's going to happen with a lot of the NSA surveillance when you got groups like Freedom Works and other groups that are, let's not say progressive, but more, left leaning, but still doesn't believe in mass surveillance. We've seen that. A lot of the sites that were promoting it showed, different logos of different organizations sponsoring it, and it was all across the spectrums of ideology. Something we had in common. Stop fighting each other, because then you're just feeding into divide and conquer. Really, when you start interacting with more people, you find out more people are just brainwashed. When you really start getting down to the roots of it, they actually do have a belief in liberty. But society's been so manipulated that they don't understand that their ideology in that doesn't coincide with what they're promoting through what they vote for, what they cheer for. Because they are told, well, it's supposed to help you. And they don't take the time to realize it harms them. Divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. You see society buy into that too much. Okay, I had another one for Next News Network. This one's pretty good. Jesse Ventura goes off-grid on Republicans. And this is the first installment of Jesse Ventura on Next News Network. So let's go ahead and cue this up here.
This is Jesse Ventura for Next News and Aura TV, and this is Off the Grid. The war ain't over. And when I say that, the war against our government. We need vigilant citizens. We need you in the country. We need you to vote. Voting's the most important thing you can do right now. The best way to take our country back is stop voting for Democrats and Republicans. They are the problem. They are not the solution. And if you think switching from one to the other is going to solve the problem, you're sadly mistaken. In fact, let me expound on this a little bit. Right now in our country, everybody's hollering and screaming about Obama and the economy and how bad it is. Well, people in the United States seem to have a very short memory, because it was a mere 10 years ago, and let me state this having been in government, decisions made now on the economy, you're not going to see them till 4 or 5 years from now, the results of those decisions. So if you go to 2008, when the big recession, depression hit, you're looking at decisions made in 2003, when we had a Republican president and a Republican Congress for 6 years, from 2000 to 2006. They are responsible for this bad economy. You're hearing it from an independent now. I am not a Democrat, but they are responsible. They did it. And yet the American people now want to go back to them to fix the economy? How ridiculous can that possibly be? Are their memories really that short that they can't remember back? I even said it to my wife before the 2008 elections. And I know I'm rambling here, but tough luck, it's my show. I even said to my wife before the 2008 elections, I wouldn't want to be this president for nothing, because this president is going to get blamed for everything George Bush and Dick Cheney did. But I'll save Dick Cheney and George Bush for another day. I'll devote a whole show to Dick Cheney. Get ready for that one.
So apparently Jesse Ventura is not done, and he's going to be doing some type of show here off the grid. There's things I agree with him on, and there's a lot of things I disagree with him on. That's what you get. We all can't agree on everything. And, that kind of feeds into the last story. You know, we have to figure out, ways to fight for the same things. And really it's the truth and liberty, and we might have different opinions and we might not understand everything. We're constantly learning. We're constantly growing as people. We're constantly, educating ourselves. And like I say, one important thing is to question yourself. Just, little advice. Start questioning yourself. And I constantly do that. And, I've been fed so much that, well, look who this person might be linked to, because they did a protest with this person and this person did a protest with this person. Oh, this person might have, been, protesting alongside this person. And the same thing with the Occupy movement. There was a lot of Ron Paul supporters. Well, the media wanted to give all the socialist type people the media attention, and Ron Paul supporters and libertarians were basically pushed to the side. They were there. They were ignored. But they were Occupy, so they're a socialist. They wore a Ron Paul t-shirt and said Spirit of 1776. That's not socialism. Just saying. Let me check something here. Okay. Here we go. Maybe. Hopefully my internet doesn't start messing up right now. Okay. There we go. There's just a pop-up there. Okay, I have one here from Ben Swan. Why is the Postal Service purchasing ammo and guns? And the Postal Service is not the first. There's other agencies that you're going, well, why do they need guns and ammo? But definitely the Postal Service? Let's find out.
What is the story behind all these federal agencies that keep attempting to purchase small arms and ammo? I'm Ben Swan with your Truth in Media Moment video. Thanks for watching. We've told you about these issues before, with DHS and Homeland Security making huge purchase orders for ammo. But this latest one is coming from the U.S. Postal Service. January 31st of this year, the U.S. Postal Service posted a solicitation to purchase assorted small arms ammunition on the federal government's Federal Business Opportunities website, fbo.gov. The solicitation is structured to begin a bidding process for the purchase of guns and ammo. So why is the U.S. Postal Service soliciting orders for small arms ammo? Well, obviously the agency hasn't explained the why behind their attempt to purchase ammo and guns. But consider this. The USPS has been posting $1 to $5 billion quarterly losses for years. In 2012 alone, the USPS lost a record $15.9 billion. Now, the USPS isn't alone in its desire to purchase ammo. The U.S. government's been purchasing firearms and ammo off the market at an alarming rate. Multiple federal agencies have recently bought billions of dollars worth of firearms and ammunition. These agencies include the Department of Homeland Security, for instance, the Department of Education, the IRS, the Social Security Administration, and there are more. Now, some believe the feds are stocking up for civil unrest. There's no actual proof of that, while others say they believe the feds are attempting to take as much ammo off the shelves as possible to prevent that ammo from going to the public. Again, we don't know for sure. But what we do know is simply this. With the national debt at $17.3 trillion, at the very least, this is a fiscal sanity issue. Why would we allow the feds to waste taxpayer dollars buying up huge amounts of ammo for agencies that have no need for them? It's not their money they're blowing on ammo. It's ours. Come on, lawmakers, those of you who talk about the need to control spending, when are you going to stand up to this kind of taxpayer dollar waste? You can find stories that affect your liberty online at benswan.com. You can also check out all of our Truth in Media videos. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search for Ben Swan. benswan.com, where humanity is greater than politics.
Alarming rate. He's not lying there. They are buying ammo, guns. They dry up the market. And we've seen them do it multiple times. Ammo shortage. Well, you forget to mention that the government just also bought how many billions of rounds. Just saying. We have a government preparing for something. When you're buying that much ammo, that much guns, that, in every agencies that don't need that much ammo or guns, they're not a law enforcement agency, then we have a issue. We do have open phone 718-717-8296. Feel free to call in. I wanted to confirm that, and I just did. So the phone lines are open, 718-717-8296. There's also a chat room if you go to ucy.tv/ATN or atnewsradio.com. And if you're on the go and you want to check out any of the broadcasts here on UCY, including this one, get the TuneIn app, and you can listen to all the great hosts and broadcasts here on UCY. Wherever you're at, in the car, at the gym, exercising, taking a walk through the woods, if you get reception. Sometimes it's good to find the place where you can't get reception and kind of be able to just soak in nature. I kind of like just going out in the middle of nowhere and just walking around and just soaking in nature. No noises. Definitely comforting. But if you can't get reception, TuneIn app. Where is society going? Where are we going to end up with the government that's buying that much ammo up? What are we going to see in the future? And I really think they want civil unrest. They can't implement everything they want to implement unless they have chaos. Order out of chaos. And I think if we don't reverse what government's doing, if we really don't start challenging, the unconstitutional, things government is doing, if we don't at least challenge them on the document that basically they claim authority under, then we will see chaos. And the problem with that is a lot of lives will be lost. And no one wants to see that. but they're preparing for it. And I don't think the American people really have a grasp on what all this means while it's taking place. You know, this isn't something that, you know, isn't known to most people. They've heard about it by now. Definitely if they're people that, you know, have guns or, you know, cooperate with, you know, they deal with the Second Amendment, or people that have guns, or people that know things about guns. It's pretty common knowledge. And if not, you know, even people that might know about Second Amendment, don't know about it, they probably, you know, see something like this from Ben Swan or another news outlet. By the way, I was leaving my other job on Monday, and where I work, there's only one talk radio, station that, you know, gets into politics, and I wasn't sure what it was on because I kind of get off work different times on Mondays, and I turn on and, it's Rush Limbaugh. I'm like, oh gosh, I gotta hurry up and change this. And as I'm getting ready to hit the button, all of a sudden he goes, I have one here from a blog called benswan.com. And I'm like, what? benswan.com? A blog? Well, he's more of a media outlet, but okay, whatever. Truth in Media, yeah. And he actually covered something out of Ben Swan, and then I changed it right after that. But just something like that, more people are going to pick up on that. They're going to go, Ben Swan, let me check out that article at Ben Swan. And they'll see things like that. They'll see, why is the Postal Service purchasing ammo and guns? What? People that don't know anything about. And then they'll start bringing this up because, hey, they're Rush Limbaugh listeners. So they're going to go, hey, Rush, I seen this other one from that blog, benswan.com. You know, there's potential to expose more. Yeah, it has potential. I thought I had one here covering Bitcoin Open queued up. Let me see. Got a lot of tabs open here. I don't see it anymore. Must have closed that tab. Well, while I queue up this next one, remember we do have call-in number after I play this next clip. We'll go ahead and take calls again. And this one, the truth about the Olympics, Sochi 2014. And this one's from Stefan Molyneux. And I don't always agree with all of his, you know, ideologies, but, there's a lot that we do agree on with. And, it's interesting to listen to his philosophy and then look at it in your own philosophy and then look at other counter arguments to ideology and really just come out of it with, wider perspective on an issue. And, he's one of the people that really gets down into maybe a philosophical, thinking. And, I like a lot of what he does. So, the truth about the Olympics, Sochi 2014 Winter Games.
Hi, everybody. It's Stefan Molyneux from Freedom Main Radio. Hope you're doing well. Here are some interesting truths and facts about the Olympics. Did you know that originally the Olympics were conducted entirely in the nude, usually by fairly well-oiled young men who I guess were parading in front of Socrates and Plato as perhaps tasty morsels for after the games? But I guess wouldn't work so well now. High def and slow motion. I mean, nobody looks good doing any kind of exercise, no matter how cut you are. But what's going on at the moment is, of course, there's the Winter Games going on. And the economics of the Olympics are really quite fascinating. There was, up until the 90s, fairly strict bans on athletes making any money. You had to be an amateur and so on. And even now, the top athletes in track and field in America usually make less than, about half of them make less than $15,000 a year, and the international and American Olympic committees pay the athletes $0. They will actually cover some flight and hotel expenses, but even that money comes from a combination of private and public sponsors and donors. So they rake in staggering amounts of money while paying the athletes, who everyone is there to watch, $0. Now, some athletes do make a lot of money, and in fact, you will get a bonus if you are, I think, in Malaysia, and you win a gold. You get a gold bar worth over $600,000, but I don't think they've ever won a gold. In America, you get $25,000 for a gold, and lesser amounts for silver and bronze. You have to pay taxes on that, of course, but you will get some extra scratch, but it's not a lot of money for the athletes. It's kind of important to remember as we start looking at the economics and fiscal reality of the Olympics. So, mega corporations are kind of handpicked by politicians to make up some of the lost taxpayer revenue for the whole affair, and generally the Olympics leave a giant smoking Nevada-sized crater in public finances. So mega corporations like Samsung, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Cadbury's, and so on, all of the least healthy things are advertising at the Olympics. And they provide them sponsorship opportunities, and of course they pay the government millions or tens of millions of dollars for this, none of which really goes back to the taxpayer but stays in the government. See, the government takes money from you to pay for the Olympics, takes money from the corporations to help fund them, and doesn't return the money back to you. It's quite of a giant exercise in crony capitalism or crapitalism. In fact, the government sometimes go to such lengths that they ban anybody who's got a small business who might show up in a background shot from advertising their business. In the London Olympics, they actually went after anyone who had the word Olympic in the title. Even at the restaurant, they went after a Greek restaurant named the Olympic Grill or something like that, because apparently the copyright is just strictly enforced it goes backwards in time, return across different venues as well. So it's pretty tightly controlled. When McDonald's secures a right to an Olympic venue, they use government power to ban anyone else from selling French fries in the entire venue. So really, it's quite, remember how the government doesn't like monopolies? Well, they will create one for you if the price is right. Now, in 1960, the right to broadcast the Olympics sold for $50,000. Now they run into the billions and billions of dollars. It's important to remember how this actually works. So the Olympics are generally constructed using the taxpayers' money. The athletes are often trained using the taxpayers' money. The images and videos are broadcast over publicly owned and publicly funded airways, publicly regulated airways. But then you have to pay a huge amount of money in terms of time, just watching commercials and sponsorship opportunities. So it is pretty wretched. It's the same thing that goes on with the NFL stadiums, where generally publicly funded stadiums are filmed and the events are broadcast across publicly funded and controlled airways, and then the taxpayer has to pay in terms of time, in terms of commercials. So the Sochi Games, the Winter Games in Russia, are estimated to spend is $51 billion. $51 billion. An International Olympic Committee official has said that as much as 1/3 of the $51 billion has been siphoned off by corruption. And this is a kind of a clue as to why the governments really like mega projects. There's a variety of reasons which we'll get to, but most fundamentally, particularly sports mega projects, it tends to dissolve resistance to massive spending. Well, it's for the Olympics, or it's for a stadium, or whatever. So when something is emotionally resonant with the taxpayers, it tends to lower resistance. And if you can also tie in government spending to national pride, which is kind of hard to do outside of wartime and sports, if you can tie government spending into something intangible like national pride, then, of course, people's resistance to massive spending goes down. Kind of strange, Sochi. It's a subtropical Black Sea resort where the temperature hovers at the moment around 10 degrees. There's no snow. It has to be shipped in. If you're going to run some winter games in Russia, I'm not sure that it's wickedly hard to find a place in Russia with lots of snow in, say, February. But how did it become a winter venue? Well, according to a spokesperson, Vladimir Putin, the head of Russia, he likes Sochi. He likes skiing there. He's building his own palace down there. It's his personal choice, and he is completely behind it. So a woman recently made a documentary on corruption in these Winter Olympics in Russia, was visited by a number of representatives who actually paid her 3 times the documentary cost, offered her 3 times the documentary cost to not release it, which she declined and stopped answering her door. In this documentary, there's a building contractor who was threatened he would be drowned in blood. No longer a Olympic event. He would be drowned in blood if he refused to pay kickbacks of up to 50% of building costs in Sochi. And the documentary also highlights the costs of the Olympics to local people who have lost their homes and livelihoods to construction. It's just this big giant claw borg that goes through neighborhoods, scooping up people's homes and businesses and so on, and just building Olympic junk over them, which generally falls into disuse and becomes a place for homeless graffiti artists and drug addicts afterwards. The environmental damage of the Winter Games, particularly in Sochi, is very hard to measure, but has been considered to be fairly catastrophic. In Beijing, for the recent Olympics, 1.5 million people were displaced. In other words, were shoveled out of their homes in order to make way for the couple of weeks of athletic excellence. So, to build a road to the Sochi Winter Olympics in Krasnaya Polyana, it's a mountain resort. It only hosts the ski and snowboard events. The Russian state spent 3 times more to build that road than NASA did for the delivery and operation of a new generation of Mars rovers. An article in the magazine Russian Esquire estimated that for the sum the government spent on the road, it could have been paved entirely with a centimeter-thick coating of beluga caviar. But because seagulls don't vote, it wasn't. Now, interesting coincidence. So of the $50+ billion being spent on the Winter Games, about 7.4 billion of them have gone to a boyhood friend and former judo partner of Vladimir Putin, whose name is Arkady Rotenberg. And that's really quite a staggering coincidence when you think about it. I mean, what really are the odds of that happening? Well, in Russia, actually close to 100%. So here's some text around the corruption. So Mr. Morozov, who is a fairly successful construction business owner, says, we started building a project in Primorsko, which is a beachside area of Sochi. It was a wing of the Sochi Presidential Resort Home. The contract came to about £47 million. There was an official, he said, who wanted to be bribed. You pay him a commission or else. I call it a corruption tax. I should have paid him 12% and an additional 5%, but managed to get it down to 3%. He goes on to describe how the money is paid directly into the Kremlin's coffers. It works like this. The money is brought to the Presidential Administration Department. I go to the 5th floor, pass through security without being screened. Yeah, you don't want to screen people who are bribing you, and leave the money. So he described how bribes went through the roof when the city and region was declared an Olympic venue. Dozens of major building contracts were issued through Olimstroy, the Russian government-owned body responsible for organizing and building the Winter Olympics. And one chinovnik, the Russian slang for a senior official, was told that the going rate for bribes was 5%, then asked, what if it were 50%? Mr. Mozarov added, I realized he was being serious. The money thrown around by the Kremlin to ensure that Russia would get the games is also revealed. Karl Schranz, the former Austrian Olympic skiing champion and personal advisor to Mr. Putin on bringing the Olympics to Sochi, talks about the big money lobbying that went into the games. Cash that Leonid Chechkev, the former head of Russia's Olympic Committee, said was practically unlimited. So, of course, there's physical excellence and amazing athleticism on display, but the fundamental driver, I would argue politically, is it creates a massive, massive fog bank for bribery and corruption, which is dissolved in people's generally positive views of the Olympics, and it can be covered up or exacerbated under the cover of nationalism. Wherever you have big construction projects, you have, and government, big construction projects plus government, and they're always involved, even if they're not paying for it directly, they're still issuing all of the licenses and permits and all that kind of stuff. You just get massive corruption. Transparency International has long cited the construction industry as the world's most corrupt, pointing to the prevalence of bribery, bid rigging, and bill padding. By 2025, estimates are that the cost of fraud in the construction industry worldwide will have reached $1.5 trillion. So not only are governments generally the biggest spenders on infrastructure, but all of the private projects, worksite inspections, approvals, permits, and so on, all of which are ripe for kickbacks. Now, big one-time projects are super juicy for corruption. Because if you're just building another road, you have all of these cost estimates and completed projects beforehand that you can compare the cost to and look for deviations. When you're building something new, what happens is it's never been built before, and so nobody knows what to compare it to, and so you could hide a huge amount of corruption in those things. And for contractors, bribery is always attractive. I mean, the cost of a bribe is dwarfed by the value of the contract. This is known as the Tulloch paradox in among economics. A study by Neil Stansbury, when a project is really big, he says, it is easier to hide large bribes. Most projects involve building something unique, or at least something that's never been built in that place before, makes it harder to estimate whether costs are reasonable or not. And Turkey's construction spree also plays a major role in economic, quote, boom. China has spent it really is impossible to estimate how much building these ghost cities. And of course, governments then say, well, look at our GDP, look at our construction industry, look at our unemployment. Because, if you pay 1 million people to dig holes and fill them in again, it looks like your economy is doing really well. So for investors who don't know much about free market economics and debt and so on, the numbers will look better when you engage in these mega projects. But because they're not fundamentally customer-driven, consumer-driven, they are enormous wastes of capital and human capital too. People get trained to work on particular projects that are unlikely to be replicated in the same way ever again, which means all their skills generally get lost. Another thing that happens is that politicians like big flashy new things. They like cutting ribbons on new things rather than all the boring work, say, of maintaining sewage infrastructure, which is not particularly exciting and which no politician is going to get a photo op on it. Also, you can get bribes on massive new projects. You can get bribes and corruption going on those big new projects a lot more than you can on, say, road maintenance and so on, again, of which the costs are generally well known and which is not flashy. So I guess it's a step up that Russian politicians are now focusing on sports rather than, say, invading and dominating Eastern Europe. But nonetheless, it still comes from the same kind of place. So in the 2012 Olympics, which was in London, there was a security company, G4S, and they were going to provide security personnel for $444 million, which was 10 times the actual original estimate. I guess you just lean on that key and you can make a lot of money. But they said, well, gosh, even though it's a massive recession, times of massive unemployment, we're just unable to get the right number of security guards. And so the army and the police had to then go out and fill the gap. And despite this failure, this security company got to keep $89 million as a management fee. Nice work if you can get it. 2004 Greek Olympics has been somewhat credited with, although the Greek government is a fairly profligate spender even in the worst of times, or the best of times, or any times in between for that matter. But they did, to join the euro currency zone, they did actually adopt some austerity measures. And austerity for the Greeks is like telling a guy on a 10,000 calorie a day diet that you're going to cut him to 9,800 calories, and then he claims that he's starving to death in some low-calorie Hunger Games nonsense. But they did reduce deficits from just over 9% of GDP in 1994 to 3.1% of GDP in 1999, right before they joined the euro. Some of that, of course, was fraud and lies, but some of it was real. But then the Olympics broke the bank, and government deficits rose every year after 1999, peaking at 7.5% of GDP in 2004, the year of the Olympics, because they spent 9 billion euros on the Olympics. Now, Greece, of course, a pretty small country. The cost of housing the Olympic Games was about 5% of the annual GDP of the country. Now, was there the resulting economic boom? Well, of course there wasn't. Building giant stadiums for which there's no long-term economic value, you might as well set fire to the money. The Olympic torch should be cash and the blood of unborn taxpayers fueling its fire, because that's all it's burning. In 2005, Greece suffered an Olympic-sized hangover, with GDP growth falling to its lowest level in a decade. However, the GDP of individual construction companies, as well as the mob, organized crime, and politicians rose extraordinarily high. Brazil is hosting the 2016 Olympics, as well as the 2014 World Cup. To construct its 5-star accommodations to entertain and house the wealthy, it is actually emptying out entire neighborhoods. And as I mentioned, 1.5 million folks were displaced for the Beijing Olympics. You would not want to be a stray dog in Sochi at the moment. They're rounding them up and disposing of them, for which I think not much detail is being provided. Now, a lot of the money that goes into the Olympics, of course, comes from taxes, as mentioned. There are huge amounts of money that are given in grants and subsidies and so on from governments. And there are over 80 Olympic Committee members who make over $100,000, but as mentioned, they pay the athletes $0. And now a few of the athletes do make a lot of money and end up in serial boxers, not so much the steeplechasers, but there is a lot of money for politics. There's a lot of money for construction companies. There's a lot of money in corruption, and there's a lot of money for people who like to roll around in chauffeurs in the international Olympic committees. There's almost no money for the athletes. I consider that to be pretty egregious. It is pure exploitation. It takes 20 years, 15 to 20 years of intense, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours a day training to get to the Olympics. People are only there to look at the Olympics. They're not there to look at the construction companies or the judges or the committee members or the politicians. They're there to look at the athletes, and the athletes are the only people who make little to no money from it. This is exploitive in the extreme. And also, of course, since some of the athletic events, not so much at the Winter Games, but certainly the Summer Games or the regular Olympics, a lot of the gymnasts and so on start their training as children. And because they start their training as children, this is really child labor. It's unpaid child labor that is being used to enrich governments and contractors to the tune of billions of dollars. It makes a Dickensian factory look like Chuck E. Cheese as far as the exploitation goes. And this is true even for the children who are in a more voluntary situation. If we take a look at some of the pictures, I'll move over a little bit here. We'll take a look at some of the pictures of what goes on in the Chinese training camps. It's pretty brutal. While we're looking at those, we will continue to talk a little bit about what happens even in the American situations. So Joan Ryan wrote a book in 1995 called Little Girls in Pretty Boxes, and she wrote the following about the system for producing gold medal gymnasts. Quote, "What I found was a story about legal, even celebrated child abuse. In the dark troughs along the road to the Olympics lay the bodies of girls who stumbled on the way, broken by the work, pressure, and humiliation. I found a girl whose father left the family when she quit gymnastics at the age of 13, who scraped her arms and legs with razors to dull her emotional pain, and who needed a 2-hour pass from a psychiatric hospital to attend her high school graduation. Girls who broke their necks and backs. One who so desperately sought the perfect weightless gymnastic body that she starved herself to death. So little girls as young as 4 or 5 are recruited and spend their childhoods in gyms, raised by coaches, some of whom behave like Svengalis. These kids are brainwashed into attempting dangerous tricks, accepting injuries and pain. These gyms always have a psychologist on staff to goad or guilt these kids. Parents often don't know what goes on because they are sometimes banned from the gyms. This is true in the US as it is in China. The reason female gymnastics is a race against puberty is because once maturity happens, the female body adds 5% body weight, which adversely limits their strength and endurance. By contrast, male gymnasts can only be developed after puberty because that is when they acquire sufficient strength to do their tricks. This also means that their careers are not only post-puberty but last longer into adulthood. There has been an ongoing sexual abuse scandal in American swimming. ESPN's TJ Quinn and Greg Amante wrote in 2010, quote, "Youth swimming coaches, many certified by USA Swimming, the sport's national governing body, have been able to molest young swimmers and then move from town to town, escaping criminal charges and continuing to victimize other underage swimmers. ESPN found the abusive coaches, some of whom molested young swimmers for more than 30 years, avoided detection because of a number of factors. USA Swimming and other organizations had inadequate oversight. Many local coaches, parents, and swimming officials failed to report inappropriate contact they witnessed, and some parents, driven to see their children succeed, ignored or did not recognize what should have been red flags." There is a study with an Australian sample on sexual abuse in sports. Out of 370 elite national and club regional athletes surveyed, 31% of female athletes and 21% of male athletes reported having experienced sexual abuse before the age of 18. Environment-specific sexual abuse rates were particularly high. 41% of the sexually abused female athletes and 29% of the sexually abused male athletes indicated that the abuse was perpetrated by sport personnel. The sport-related abuse was largely perpetrated by those in positions of authority or trust in relation to the athletes, primarily coaches, and less frequently support staff and other athletes. The vast majority, more than 96% of the perpetrators, were men. So as I mentioned, one study by the USA Track and Field Foundation demonstrated, quote, approximately 50% of our athletes who rank in the top 10 in the USA in their event make less than $15,000 annually from the sport. So, sports is an improvement over war, and sports, in fact, was considered by the ruling classes to be an excellent preparation for war. What does sports fundamentally do? It substitutes geography for value, right? Why is your team better than some other team? Because they're closer to you, in the same way that your army is better than the other guy's army because they're closer to you. It gets you addicted to loving a uniform rather than the character of the person in the uniform, the moral content or the virtue or integrity of the person in the uniform. Because people can shuffle in and out of those uniforms, but you must remain loyal to the team. So it's an empty geographical shell that is around you that demands and evokes your allegiance. This goes way back to our tribal days, of course. I mean, all who did not develop an irrational allegiance to those geographically proximate to themselves in the form of the tribe would usually be expelled from the tribe, and if all the tribal members didn't care whether it was their own tribe or the other tribe that won, that tribe would be wiped out. So we've been genetically selected for bonding or an irrational adherence to costumes that are geographically close, and that is prepared for by sports. Hate the other team or dislike the other team or want to beat the other team. This is a fundamental lack of empathy. And don't get me wrong, I love sports. I think sports are a lot of fun to play. They really are. But we all know, come on, sports team A, which you then follow, watch Hoop Dreams or, any of the sports films. You're just watching that sport team, those ragtag bunch of misfits who somehow find a way to get together with a boozy manager to beat the other team and achieve victory and change their lives and so on. That's team A. You could take the exact same movie and go over to the other side to Team B. And you would follow them, and you'd feel exactly the same thing. Whoever you get emotionally invested in is the person you want to win, which is why you get all of these little intros to these athletes. You know, they grew up in poverty, and, you know, both parents were struck by lightning, but the electricity passed to the next generation allows them to vault tall buildings with a single bound and so on. So, sports has always been a preparation for war, and I'm very glad that the world is having sports events rather than war events, although that has a lot more to do with the development of nuclear weapons than it does with any particular maturation of the human condition. But it is really important to understand that it's a completely irrational adherence. When I was a kid growing up, my local team in England was Crystal Palace, which was populated by a lot of people from Trinidad and Tobago who could barely speak that English, let alone the Queen's English, and I was supposed to find some massive allegiance because they mirrored my experience in some manner, and they'd be traded next year, and next year other people would come in. So I'm just supposed to love the uniform because the uniform is the closest one. I mean, we all understand in our heads, you know, that that's completely irrational. It's silly. Now, I don't mind people indulging in their silliness, but not at my expense, right? I mean, if you want to go worship some local sports team or whatever and think that they're the best thing since sliced bread, be my guest. You know, just keep your goddamn hands out of my pocket through the state when you do so. And don't sell off my daughter's future to indulge in your silly, local, anti-rational, dangerous tribalism. And understand, at least with the Olympics, that these are people who were exploited as child laborers, not paid, for the profit of enormously rich, well-connected, largely corrupt conglomerates, multinationals, and corporations. At least see the Olympics for what it is. And then if you can continue to enjoy it, you might want to look in the mirror and just ask yourself how.
The Truth About the Olympics, Sochi 2014 from Stefan Molyneux. Pretty interesting. One thing though, I disagree with them on is the whole attitude of, fighting each other, rooting for your team and all that. Because, there was something I seen out of RT, about the skiing. One of the Russian, skiers took a pretty good tumble and broke his left ski. He was going to try kind of limp his way all the way to the finish line, and a Canadian coach runs out with a spare ski and even snaps it on the Russian skier's foot for him so he could finish the race, even though he wasn't going to even come anywhere near. He was basically going to be at the bottom of the pack, but gave him a spare ski, that way he could at least finish with some type of pride. That's humanity. A lot of people are like, well, you know, that's because he was in Russia, he had to do. No, that's humanity. That's something I would do. And would you be sitting there going, well, it's because he's no, it's because I would be like, hey, make him walk across the finish line. Here's an extra ski. At least ski across the finish line. You know, it's just one of those things that I don't care what country you're from. It didn't matter. You know, just, I'll let you have a little pride and at least be able to ski across the finish line instead of walk. That's just humanity. So I think that, even though, yeah, it's like any type of sport, you root for your home team, but there's still humanity in it. And that comes back to the individual. There might be some individuals, oh, look at him, he's gotta walk. Well, you know, let their character be what it is, but, you know, when I try to spread a message and, you know, spread liberty, I also try to live it. So I try to live by my ideology. I don't care what race you are. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care if you don't have a religion. I judge you on you. Do you prove yourself to be trustworthy? Do you prove yourself to be, hardworking? Why you think I'm on this network out of all the other networks that I could have chosen? There was multiple ones out there. But I've been on shows with Jules. I've talked with Jules. I know how Jules is, and she is extremely hardworking, and she's proven herself to be trustworthy. There's been plenty of drama on plenty of networks. Almost all the networks out there have had some crazy drama. And I've never had to experience that on this network with Jules. And I'm thankful for that. And, she has proven her character, I think, to everybody. So, you really have to really take everybody as an individual, and, you have to trust who you're going to trust, and you can't let anybody else make that judgment for you. And, judge people on their character. A lot of times you hear, Jew this or black person that. It really has nothing to do with it. You have to really speak about what that person's doing, no matter if they're Jewish or not, or if they're black or not, or if they're white or not. Zimmerman case, it doesn't matter if he was white, Mexican, if he was also a black person. And, well, then that means that why is this case getting more? Because they're using race. Any honest media really needs to start coming out and saying that a individual shot and killed a innocent other individual, that would be honest. But when they go, a white person shot a black person, or even the opposite, a black person shot a white person, or a Japanese person shot a white person, or a white person shot a Japanese person. No, a individual shot an individual. What's the motive? What's the reasoning? Who cares what race they are? Who cares what religion they are? Who are they? What do they represent? Was it self-defense, or are they representing someone that thinks because they're offended and get angry at someone that they can just walk up and kill them? Were they, being pursued by people and they shot them? You know what? It has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with the religion. It has everything to do with the individual. And every time we pair people in these classes of race or religion, we're taking the responsibility away from the individual. And that's where we need to focus. When we start focusing that way, then we can actually start addressing the problem. And the simple fact is, the problem doesn't go away with government. If anything, government gives kind of, a little bit of room for people to do wrong things and have immunity. Being able to use the populace as test dummies. Experiment on them. Guinea pigs. They're a little sheeple to herd into the cage and inject them with who knows what. Gas them with who knows what. No matter what group they're with. These are actions that they're taking as a individual. And any individual that believes they have that ability or that authority over others is what we need to aim to take down. Rand Paul filing a suit against the NSA. Maybe his suit doesn't go far enough. Maybe he doesn't go far enough. He's filing a suit against the NSA. You can want more, but you could also get less. So maybe you don't support it because it doesn't go far enough, or you don't support him because he doesn't go far enough. Well, don't trash him. Because at least he's taking that step. Now, if there's something crooked about it, maybe some language in the lawsuit that you can expose that really shows it's just a show and he really doesn't mean anything, then prove it. And I would love to see that, because if it's true, we should expose it. But I get tired of the divide and conquer. I get tired of watching people go, well, this person, he doesn't believe in libertarianism. He believes in constitutionalism. He doesn't go far enough. Is he going, in what direction is he going in? Is he going more fascism, socialism, communism, or is he going more towards constitutional libertarian view? You know, maybe in that direction, away from big government at least? Well, then don't trash him. You don't have to support him. But don't trash someone that's moving in the direction. Because maybe they might grow as a person, as we all do. You know, 5 years ago, there's things I didn't know that I would have been on a different side of the issue. I grow as a person. We all do. And maybe if we get towards more of a freer society, more people go, well, if that works so well, then why do we need government for this? Let's go ahead and get rid of that too. Well, that worked out too. Who would have known it? Without government, who would have built the roads? Well, communities started taking their tax money back and building the roads themselves, and, well, they don't fall apart every year. Because they won't pay a contractor crazy amount of money to do a, crap job. Which I've watched them do it, where, this company had been getting paid all kinds of money to put this road in that took, a good 7-8 months. And it was probably a 2-mile stretch. Then within a year, they had to repave it because it started falling apart. Like, really? How you paid them for 7 or 8 months worth of work? And that's, yeah, okay. And we've seen it happen where there has been communities that said, well, we've tried to get the road fixed. They wouldn't fix it. We pay to have it fixed. And the city gets mad because they just proved that, well, we don't need you to fix the roads. We can do it cheaper. Oh, the city was mad. So, no, well, we didn't permit it. So it's going to have to be torn up and redone. What? Well, we've completely lost free market at all when government has control over it. So if you have the roads being built by government, do you as a community that has to drive up and down that road get to have any input on what company does it? For what price? And it's the same with the Obamacare website. The company that did it is also the company that was supposed to set up the firearms registration up in Canada and mess that completely up. You think that would have been a good free market choice if people go, well, if they're going to set this up, let's look at what company's doing it. Oh, this company, we don't want them because, well, they completely screwed up Canada's gun registration. No. But if we had free market, you think Obamacare would have got passed? No. You lose your chance to put your money where you want it. That's something that it's even easier to, fight at a local level. If you think about it, it's a little bit easier to go down to your local, representative that's there in your community and complain to you and the community when they're taking your money and just wasting it? Or do you think it's easier to go all the way to DC? Why do you think they want it in a federal control? That's why we need to bring it back to the states. That's why I can support the Tea Party to that point. But like I said, I am a libertarian. I do believe that we can move past, even more towards freedom than what the Constitution provides. But that takes the evolution of the human race. We have to start somewhere. Okay. I had one here from We Are Change. I haven't got to watch this one yet. This one, what humanity needs to realize. Let's see what this one's about. Something I wanted to watch and it didn't get the chance. So here we go. Maybe. Maybe.
I don't know. I'm wondering how much bull can the world put up with before nature just breaks? How much illusion can the world suffer before nature just snaps in half?
That was Bill Hicks
indigenous
speaking.
people in places like the Amazon. They don't do anything that isn't sustainable. You just don't do it. If it isn't sustainable, it's not even possible or conceivable that you would do it. And so now here we are at a time where we've come through several hundred years of history doing non-sustainable things. And we're all sitting around now, big corporations are getting together for conferences on sustainability. Should we become sustainable? Can we become sustainable? Well, the obvious answer is if we don't become sustainable, by definition, we're not here any longer at some point.
So here we have all these structures on the planet, meaning different corporations, different companies, different ways of using our resources and so forth. None of it is driven for the benefit of mankind or humanity, the planet, or the animal kingdom. It's all driven by money. To make more money, to have more control, more power, and to be better than someone else. And that's basically the driving force.
An economic system that is so sane that the more successful it is in its own terms, the quicker it destroys the planet. It insists every year that we take more from the earth even quicker, turn it into even more things, sell even more things, consume even more things, throw away even more things, to worship the real God of the modern world, economic growth. It insists that every year 20% of the people of the world consume 80% of the resources, while leaving the other 80% to get by on the other 20%. Crazy. Of course it is. But that's the economic system, take, make and throw away, that controls your life and mine. And that of 6 billion people nearly.
you got to take care of the whole community, or you're going to have serious problems. And now we have to see that the whole world is the community, and we must all take care of each other that way. And it's not just a community of human beings. It's a community of plants and animals and elements. And we really need to understand that.
So self-interest is good as long as it's contained by the self-interest of a community. You see, that makes us always be aware of other levels. And if we can learn this as humans, to say when we're making a decision, is this good for me, for my family, for my ecosystem, for my nation, for my world? And then if it's good at some levels and at least harmless at others, like the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm, then go ahead and try it. You're a creative human being.
Now, a lot of people might take that last part as, oh, well, that's world government, that's a world view. And really, if you look at it, let's say you're not supposed to abridge other people's rights. Well, if that person has a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, if you're poisoning their land where they can't grow food, you're obstructing their property, their person, you're attacking them, you're oppressing them. Those are no-nos. And that can be worldwide. But that doesn't mean that we need government worldwide to have that. But again, that's the evolution of the human race. We can either evolve or de-evolve. De-evolution. Do we want to see a society that has to go through de-evolution, which honestly I think we have like a split right now, where we have a portion of society going through de-evolution. They're losing their intelligence, their whole, instinct of self-preservation. And then we got another portion of society that's becoming aware, that's seeking out to really understand life, understand liberty, understand, the world, the universe. They're seeking to expand their minds. And then, we have the ones that are going through de-evolution, where they really don't want to have any grasp of reality. And we really need to try to break that as much as possible without abridging, again, their rights. They have a right to be unintelligent. But just because they have a right to be unintelligent doesn't mean that they have a right to abridge our rights because they're not intelligent enough to provide for themselves. And for those that maybe it's not, voluntarily being dumb, but, they have an issue, a mental issue or a physical issue or whatnot, people are there that will help. It's, it's not their fault. But there's people out there that are willingly ignorant. And those are the people that most people complain about. Like, I don't want to pay for welfare because there's people out there on welfare that are capable of providing for themselves. Why should my tax dollars go to that? Well, we have to help the poor, the people that are unable to provide. But that's not what you're doing. They are able to provide. They're unable to provide because you're just giving it to them. Why would they go out and do something? Well, if you go get a job and you work 40 hours a week, then we'll take this away from you and you'll probably make less, because a lot of times they pay out quite a bit. I've seen people that have gotten their little food stamp card. And they're like, oh yeah, I get this much a month for groceries. I'm like, what? I wish I had that much to spend on groceries. I could And they buy junk. They don't buy anything good. Oh, it looks like we have a caller here. Let's go ahead and take this call. Caller, welcome to the broadcast. Who is this and what would you like to speak about?
Oh, this is Desert Hawk.
Hey.
Yeah, I've been listening to your broadcast. You got a little bit of echo.
Okay, that should be better.
What's on your mind here? You got all kinds of situations going on.
Yeah, what would you like to speak about first?
Well, what's the objective here? I mean, obviously we're under attack.
The objective is to awaken people's mind. Now, there's...
Whoa. People's minds. We're talking 7 billion people.
Okay.
And if I'm listening to your previous, 5 minutes ago, it's unsustainable.
Did I say that?
Well, that was the recording that you played on your broadcast.
And did I say that I don't agree with everything he talks?
I'm not making a judgment. I'm just saying what I heard.
I don't think the earth is unsustainable. There's been plenty of reports out that said that, we can take billions and billions more.
Whose reports? Whose reports are these?
There's many of them. I don't have them right here in front of me.
Well, I've heard them too. The thing that seems to be missing here is how we can leave the planet, because obviously this is something that is out of our scope of comprehension.
Well, that's a problem we have. We don't have a space program that's really active right now.
Oh, okay, yeah. And who shut it down?
The government.
The government, yeah, the government. And specifically this recent administration shut it down.
Yes.
And probably, I think Bush messed around with it too. And probably the one before that.
They didn't even they didn't even keep up with our space program. Those, the shuttles were never, successfully upgraded to, good standards. We kept using outdated stuff. We weren't updating our space program. So it was multiple administrations. It was Republicans. It was Democrats.
Yep,
it was all
this is true. There's a pattern. There is a pattern here. And it seems to me the same people that are messing around with the space program are the same ones that are doing this nefarious stuff and in fact, they're the same ones that are saying that it's unsustainable. Am I right?
Yep.
When I come on, I get on this.
Sustainable situation though. Are they unsustainable?
Well, see,
because if you look out at Africa where they receive nothing but food aid all the time, these were civilizations that used to be able to farm the desert.
This is true.
And they can't do it anymore.
Oh, they survive. There's people that can survive in the desert.
Oh yeah, but I'm saying the populations that are receiving all this food aid, they've been receiving it for so many generations that they've lost that ability to be able to farm the desert like their ancestors used to. Yeah, there's still, sections out there that still live in the desert, that still prosper, but the bigger populaces that were able to, make stuff out of nothing, they've really been controlled through, United Nations and all this food aid and world organizations. And that's happening worldwide. And it's not only by United Nations, it's by other country, governments that are, taking that ability, saying that you're not allowed to farm. You have to take our, breadline food.
No. Okay. Now, this is the year 2014, and these people are being told what to do by somebody who has better technology or more advanced technology. Okay? Right?
Usually the government does have advanced
technology. Well, the word government means mind control.
Yeah, it's govern the mind.
That's what it means. Govern. The govern means to govern. The M-E-N-T means menti from the word mental. That means mind control. So when you hear the word government, all it means is mind control.
Right.
That's all it means.
Yeah.
Who is the government?
Blood-sucking parasites.
Well, then that means we're under attack. That means we got a problem. People got to snap out of this.
Now,
they got to snap out of it.
What's the solution though?
what specifically the solution? Number one is to understand that you're under attack. That's the first step.
People listening to this broadcast pretty much know we are under attack.
I'll buy that for $1. Okay, but what I've been hearing on occasion is they keep going round and round and round, saying, "Oh, geez, we just had a 50-round bullet hit this truck over here. Let's analyze it. Oh, gee, it came from a 30-degree trajectory. Oh, well, how much did it weigh? Oh, well, let's analyze the blast pattern." No, you don't worry about that. You go back and you find out where it came from and take them out.
And I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about, but
you just said we're under attack. We agree on that point. We got to figure out where we're under attack from.
And we know it's the world's elite. It's a multitude.
Okay, it's the world elite. So why is it on all these different channels? I keep hearing this stuff. I mean, I even got criticized about the idea of a spaceship. We need to start building our own spaceships.
Well, there's private companies that are offering that to civilians, but again, usually
so I'm a civilian. Am I hearing that? I'm a civilian now?
That's what they would call you. You're not a government.
Who's they?
It's not governmental. You're either.
See, this starts going in a circle here. It starts coming down to a circle. This is reaching a point to where it's becoming so obvious who is who.
I'm not sure what you're trying to say here.
Well, what I'm saying is that it should become obvious. If you use the basic concept of there are, I mean, egads, man, for thousands and thousands of years, people on this planet knew that we were being visited. Okay? Why is it in this modern civilization, he's got aluminum under his hat. Oh, he's a kook, or he or she is a kook. No, we're not kooks. It's been going on for thousands of years. This is a cycle. See?
So
people need.
Are you saying that now aliens are in control?
Well, how do you define alien? Is that somebody who doesn't have their green card?
You said outer space or something? People came here.
No. You're the one who mentioned aliens. Are you saying somebody who doesn't have their green card?
I'm trying to figure out what you're talking about.
Well, you talk about the world elite, right?
Okay, yeah.
So what's going on here? What are you talking about?
I'm not talking about anything. You're talking. I'm trying to figure out what you're talking about.
What I'm trying to figure out is a couple of years ago, this current administration shut down the space shuttle program. They shut it down. That's 30,000 jobs plus. I mean, that's a lot of money. That's part of the economy. But wait a second, we got plenty of money to go over around the world and tell other people what to do and kill them. Oh, but we ain't got enough money to go into space or to keep the space shuttle going. Even though I'm backtracking here. It's a 50-year-old design. Something's not adding up here.
Well, that's probably because, again, private companies are starting to do space exploration, and they're doing it for extravagant amounts of money so that only basically the rich are going to be able to afford it. A lot of people can say, well, maybe they're going to leave the world.
Okay.
I don't know.
You mentioned the rich. Aren't the rich the same ones that are pulling the same type of behind the curtains kind of stuff?
Some of them.
Oh yeah, I'd say at least some of them.
Some of the top rich people. Maybe not the lowest rich people. The people that we would maybe consider extremely wealthy, but in the world perspective, they're not Rothschilds, they're not Rockefellers, they're not the elites, but in our standards, they would be considered rich. There's people out there that own businesses that have made it for themselves, that have created, a wealth that they could maybe go fly into space, but that doesn't mean that they're the ones that are in control.
Okay.
Sometimes we give
kinda
too much
strange.
props
I mean,
to people
how long did it take to screw up a perfectly balanced planet? How long did it take? What, 200 years? 120?
It matters, it matters how you look on history. History will say that the world's been destroyed many of times.
Okay. What, I guess the basic point I'm trying to make
Societies have been destroyed.
People, if people, I mean, I'm not the boss. I'm not trying to tell people what to do. I'm throwing an idea out there, is keep your focus on who is causing the problems. And I mean, if they're not going to take any prisoners, then why should we? Let's put it that way. Because it's coming down to a wire here. I mean, we got people, I mean, crimey, look at what the police are doing.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather smoke some weed and go off into the woods.
And there's people doing that. And
yeah.
There's a lot of different things. I want to thank you for calling in, Desert. I'm going to let you go now, and I'll kind of cover some of the stuff you went over. But
all right.
Thanks for
I'll
calling.
Be listening. You bet. I keep it straight.
Yep. Take care. And not sure exactly on every point he was trying to hit, but focusing on the people that are doing the harm comes from ourselves, really. Yes, they're the ones controlling, but if we're not willing to try to spread the message of liberty, the individual, and try to get people off of this brainwashing, whether it doesn't matter who you think is doing it. You look at the elite, you look at the individuals. Not every rich person is, some crazy, elitist that's trying to control the world. They're business people that are trying to run a business. And I can't hate on someone for getting rich, being able to understand how to sell a product that they make the way people might want to buy it. And there's things out there that I buy, and I'm glad that that person invented that, because it's great opportunity. Like maybe this mic I'm speaking through. Without someone making it and being able to produce it, I wouldn't be able to use it. And not everything's perfect, but no matter if you have government or no government, it's been proven that government hasn't solved any of the solutions. We haven't stopped murder, we haven't stopped rape, we haven't stopped all these other crimes. So what is government good for? Well, originally though, the concept of a government that could work for the people. What would government be in control of? And yes, I understand the root word of government. Just like politics, many ticks. Multiple ticks. Multiple bloodsuckers. I understand the root words. But if you're looking at someone, that is what that type of organization would be called. And it was like, well, how can we create a government that works for the people? Well, the government would basically just protect the rights that are in the Bill of Rights. And the only time they interject is, well, if someone's abridging those, and to protect our borders from invading governments. If you look at it that way, you go, well, government wouldn't be so bad. The problem is, well, through loose language, manipulation of language, and we even see it with people trying to say, oh, the Constitution was set up, to fail. Well, you don't always take the words in the context of what we believe the words to mean today. You have to look at the context of what the meaning is back then. Because we already look at just in how many decades that the word liberalism has been completely changed, what the meaning of it is. When you say liberal today, you think, oh, left-winger, socialist. When you think of progressive, you think, oh, that's the big government right and left-wingers. Republican and Democrats that like big government. Like John McCain, Boner, and, Nancy Pelosi and all of them, Harry Reid, they're all progressives. But progressive just meant being able to experiment, to move forward, to learn new technology. It's really, words have been twisted, and that's where we have to really start trying to wake people's minds up. When you go research something that is 200 years old, you can't take every word in the context that you understand it in today's terms. When you go, read Rothbard, you go read some of the, libertarian philosophers, and they use words like liberalism. Well, that was from the word liberty, to be free. It doesn't have the same meaning today. I think Hayek even used liberal. And there's many other things, that when you look at the meaning today, it doesn't represent the meaning that it had back then. And I've seen so much stuff in there that just did not vibe with me when I was looking at how they were trying to break down, the Constitution, what this meant. Well, even the right wing would get that wrong. Well, why would they get that wrong? Because they still want power. And the same way they get it wrong is how the left, liberal side, manipulates it even further. Why do you think Obama isn't impeached yet? Why do you think none of the right is trying to go after him hardcore? Because it's power grabs. And you go, well, they are puppets. They are controlled by the banks. But they are individuals. They make that choice. There's sometimes, hard choices in life. And I think that's why we do lose a lot of good people. And I'm never going to tell anybody not to defend themselves. If they have done nothing to harm anybody, I wouldn't see why you should be harmed yourself, so I'm not going to tell anybody never to defend themselves. You should protect yourself, that's your right as a human being. Someone comes breaking in your window, trying to rob you, rape you, or whatever, defend yourself. And I would never tell anybody different. But let's put it this way. If you were able to get into office and you really wanted to free the people, but you knew the moment you tried to do that you had a target on your head. The moment you try to do that, you would probably end up dead. Do you have the character to stand behind your ideology? Would you have the character to say, I'm going to free the people? That's a tough question for a lot of people. A lot of people that have a deep ideology, that's still a tough question. would you even put yourself in that position? If it meant freeing a people, the potential of actually freeing a society, would you put yourself in that position? You know, the main thing I've always tried to say is violence is not the answer. But for true evil people, they believe it is. People that don't want to let go of power. Okay, I have another one here. Let's go and play one from Pigmine 5, but for some reason his channel didn't want to load right. Not sure what's going on there. Close a few of these tabs here. Okay. And if it'll load. This one's from Next News Network. And if it'll load again. Not sure what's going on here. Looks like I'm starting to have internet problems again. Same thing that happened last time. Okay, I guess, it is not wanting to work. Let me try this real quick. That's not wanting to work either. None of the articles want to load, and now that doesn't want to load. Open up a different browser. We'll try that out. Still not working. Now I have nothing. Okay, here we go. We'll just shut all of it off right here. I don't know if anybody else has been having problems with their internet, but we definitely have here. Here we go.
Opening testimony show the Federal Reserve's arrogance? Well, when Janet Yellen appeared before the House Financial Services Committee yesterday, she gave relaxed answers to most questions. But two members of Congress touched a nerve when they each grilled the newly confirmed Federal Reserve Chairman about former Representative Ron Paul's bill to audit the Fed. Florida Congressman Bill Posey and Representative Michelle Bachmann of Minnesota not only pressed Ms. Yellen on what she'd think of Paul's bill if it were in force, they also mentioned the holy grail of Federal Reserve operations, monetary policy. Ms. Yellen's demeanor noticeably changed when that issue was raised, and she made one thing very clear. The Fed will never allow an in-depth government audit to second-guess the sacred monetary policy conducted behind closed door by the Fed's Open Market Committee, or OMC. The OMC publishes minutes and basic scheduling, but even presidents and Congress members cannot attend OMC meetings. The Fed calls that independence, which it certainly is, but critics say it's independence from accountability. Deciding how much money enters the economy and under what terms is a critical piece of the Fed's actions. It needs to be better understood and closely watched. Should monetary policy be left to private bankers who feel public input via Congress is political interference? Too much money ahead of goods and services means inflation. Too little means deflation, as goods and services are idled due to lack of purchasing power. Without an audit that includes monetary policy, can we trust the Federal Reserve to strike a balance for the good of all rather than for its own gain? Congressman Posey called Ron Paul's audit bill the most sponsored bipartisan bill that's been put before the House in recent memory. It passed the House with flying colors in mid-2012, but was blocked in the Senate. Ron Paul's son, Senator Rand Paul out of Kentucky, introduced it in the current Congress as S-209. A similar House bill is parked in committee, and an unavoidable question is that if Bachmann and Posey think an audit is so important, then why don't we see more action on these current audit bills? Yellen is scheduled to address the Senate Banking Committee tomorrow during her twice-yearly report to Congress, and at yesterday's House hearing, she indicated it's hard to believe that some in Congress may not trust the Federal Reserve. Posey shot back, and she stated, "Some of us believe in the adage trust but verify." Posey also told Yellen that every other federal agency is subjected to the government audits that only the Fed avoids, apart from sundry audits conducted by private firms. Posey reassured Yellen that Ron Paul's audit would have limited itself to post-decision audits, and that means that individual Federal Reserve actions, including those taken by the OMC, would not be second-guessed. Posey assumed that reassurance would cure Yellen's jitters about elected officials looking over the Fed's shoulder when it makes monetary policy. He was mistaken. When Yellen stated that
an audit is different than second-guessing policy judgments.
She also levied with Bachmann and Posey that a Paul-style audit of the Fed is unwelcome. Yellen also kept defaulting to the same old Fed boilerplate that political intervention, what others dare call genuine oversight, is not welcome at the Federal Reserve. As if reading a script, she repeated that the Fed's assigned duty is to maximize sustainable employment and price stability. She also added keeping inflation running well below 2% is our objective. Representative Bachmann stressed that there is growing public criticism of the Federal Reserve. Bachmann asked Yellen how struggling Americans could ever hope to have any control over their often gloomy economic destinies if the Fed insists that in-depth public oversight is unacceptable. Yellen only replied that committee hearings like this one were pretty much all Americans and Congress should ever expect in terms of input. On a practical level, that means no influence at all. After 100 years of the Federal Reserve, do you believe that Americans deserve something better?
I think humankind deserves a lot more better. Okay. Had one here from Ben Swan. We're coming up to the end of the broadcast. I want to cover this one. And this one is breaking. Utah legislators move to kill NSA data center. Says here, Salt Lake City, February 12th. Can Utah shut down the NSA data center by turning off the water? A new bill introduced by State Representative Mark Roberts seeks to do just that. The legislation, drafted by Transportation Coalition Organization by the 10th Amendment Center and Bill Rights Defense Committee, called of Now Coalition, the Utah Fourth Amendment Protection Act would expressly prohibit state material support, participation, and assistance to any federal agency that collects electronic data or metadata without search warrant, but particularly describes that person, place, and thing to be searched or seized. Without question, the mass surveillance and data collection by the Utah Data Center is a delicate and important matter, Roberts said. But for me, the language of the Fourth Amendment is clear. It simply protects us against unreasonable and unwarranted searches or seizures of our persons, private residencies, and property, documents, information, and personal and private belongings. The legislation preserves those rights to the people. This puts contracts that provide the 1.7 million gallons of water a day necessary to cool the NSA computers at its Bluffdale facility in the crosshairs. Bluffdale, a political subdivision of Utah, provided the NSA with a sweetheart water deal. The bill would begin the process of ending that deal, potentially crippling the NSA ability to keep the facility functional. No water equals no NSA data center, TAC Executive Director Michael Bolden said. He called the potential impact of the legislation significant, especially compared to what Congress has done to deal with the agency. Not going to read the rest of this. I'll drop the link in the chat. You shut down the water and shut down the computers, let those things fry, and hopefully they shut down the water in the middle of the night, no one knows about it, and everything just fries. That's what I think of that. I think that you're going to probably see that probably fell. I think that there's probably going to be some type of federal kickback or some type of threat come down that basically won't allow that bill to pass, but it would be nice. Hey, they could prove us wrong. And there's a lot of Mormons, and Mormons tend not to like the government in the first place. Kind of why they are where they are out in Utah, Salt Lake City. Why that whole group basically flourished out there, because of their way of life, and they don't really like the government and kind of ran out there from the government. So, hey, you never know. They might pass it. Wouldn't that be something? Fry computers fry? We could only hope. Lose whatever maybe they have already collected. But would they just move to another place that, might have the right population that will go ahead and support the spying? I ain't got nothing to hide. Think that's what they'll say. Who knows? Hopefully, maybe they just shut the water off right, make it just unsustainable. I guess that's hopeful thinking. But hey, we have to try every avenue we have to get rid of the NSA spying, to break down these tentacles of government that are prying into our lives. And I stand with anybody that's willing to do that. And my simple fact is that I'm going to continue to fight for liberty, even if we had a constitutional government one day and I'm still alive and we got there. Society's there. Well, I don't think society should stop evolving. I don't think liberty just halts at the Constitution. I think we can continue to grow. So, it's one of those things that's who I am. That's where I stand. But that doesn't mean I can't support people that are willing to take those steps towards freedom, to fight those tentacles of government and these world elite that want to control our lives. And if you're willing to fight those people instead of fighting those tentacles, it doesn't mean you have to support the other people, but focus on fighting those. Don't focus on fighting the guy that's protesting the same thing you are just because of his other, what you might consider misbeliefs. It's one of those things. There's plenty of people I disagree with on many issues, but I'll support them on the things that we agree on. That's fine. Why should I divide us any more than we already are as a society? Why should you be, spreading division any more than society is already divided by the government and the world elite and these people that are trying to control our lives? Do they not do a good enough job of dividing humankind so that we're fighting each other instead of taking on the people that are trying to tell us what to think, what to eat, how to live? People can sit there and spout that that's how they believe it should be, but are they the ones that are actually controlling you? Free their mind. Don't fight them. Find the things you agree on. Conversate. Talk about the things that you disagree on. Sometimes you might have problems understanding what the other person's trying to say. That's fine. There's things that you can still agree on. And there is no perfect solution. And that's why I like multiple theories on solutions. Maybe there's some way that we can, through all the conversation, come up with the steps needed. That's been going on. Just look at the 10th Amendment Center. They've been coming up with legislation that basically it's a fill in the blank that you can try to get your representative to push to nullify these federal laws. Gun confiscation, NSA spying, warrantless searches. No, it's not perfect. Nothing's perfect. But it's a hell of a lot better, and it's a step in that direction. We're being ambushed. That's where we need to focus. I want to thank everybody for tuning into the broadcast tonight here on UCY.TV. Coming up next, Try This at Home with Dana Martin. Tune in for that. Coming up next here on UCY.TV. Catch me Friday here on UCY.TV and AT News Radio, Anti-Tyranny News.com. Take care. See you Friday.